Hi, welcome to the part 1 of 3 series for the Convergence series. I hope everyone can hear me. Please let us know if you can't. We're going to get started here in just a second. So welcome everybody. I'm Jessica Ruby. I'm a Senior Manager here at autoTRADER. We're going to get started today with part 1 of 3 of the Convergence series. Part 1 is on search advertising today. Thank you all for joining us. Today we're going to be talking about how you can capture consumers at their highest intent moment and move them from online to your dealership. Before we begin, I just want to make sure that you know how to
do webinar, and we will address that right away. As Jessica mentioned, I've been in the digital marketing industry for approximately 2 decades. I've worked throughout the span of Google and Facebook, and then moved into the automotive segment, and have been involved in helping thousands of dealerships with their digital marketing strategies, both within the private realm and also in publicly traded companies. Really excited to be able to walk everyone through the Convergence series today. This is step 1 of 3 that we'll be covering, from search to social to display remarketing. Our goal is to go through some of the fundamentals of digital strategies related in this session to paid search, but also give a good landscape and an overall horizon of what's happening in the industry within Canada and digital marketing overall. So what you'll see is a lead-in in part 1 to online growth in Canada, how digital advertising continues to expand. As we start to shift into the fundamentals of paid search, we'll do a little bit of a briefer so everyone is just caught up to speed on the fundamentals of paid search, the construction of a search engine page, key metrics to analyze and measure your campaigns, and then some best practices such as combining analytics and advertising together. We'll round out with a little bit more advancement around audience development, looking at long-tail searches, also just thinking about where search is headed in the future. So our goal with these webinars is not to go too deep in any one area, but to give you some ideas overall to bring back into your dealership, and then also start thinking about how you can move into digital marketing at a pace that the industry is growing at. So without further ado, we'll start to shift into part 1. And again, if you have any issues with audio or video, please comment within the screen and we will address it right away. Look forward to walking everyone through this. We will have a question and answer session at the end. So as we go through this, if a question pops up, put it in there, and then we'll be answering as many as we can at the end of the session, and then following up with any others at a later date. All right, Canada and digital growth, part 1. As we start to look at the market within Canada, more ever than not, we are seeing Canadians are shifting online, and more than just being online, are extremely active in the digital space. So in total, in 2018, we're seeing 30 million Canadian internet users, and that penetrates 84% of the adult population within Canada. So a significant amount of Canadians are online today. And more so that we're seeing ever than before is the fact that 24 million are connecting through a mobile device as well too. Just years ago, I can remember back into 2013, 14, we were seeing about 50% of mobile penetration within search, and we're starting to see that number just take over overall. So again, 69% of mobile internet users within the Canadian population. Even more staggering is the fact that there are 26 million digital buyers. So we're seeing people transact either through downloading a book, making a purchase through an online store such as Amazon or Walmart, or even these days purchasing parts or services for their automobile online. That leads to approximately 21 hours of time spent online, which is a significant amount of time. If you equate it back to your own day and week, Canadians are spending about 3 days total online in any given week. So more than not, we're seeing a lot of Canadians shift online and expand their digital habits into mobile and online shopping as well too. Another trend that we're seeing is within the automotive industry, how Canadians and the internet population as a whole are starting to think about car buying in a new way. So this is from the Carology report that Trader Corporation publishes as part of their Carology Insights. And brand decisions are starting online. So what we're seeing here is 70% of new car buyers are evaluating what they want from a car before they visit a showroom, which means the manufacturer websites are critical as an early stage selling tool. You might be thinking, as a dealership, well, what does this have to do with my dealership? Twofold. One, if we look down a little further, 50% of new car buyers decided on a vehicle before a dealer visit. And this emphasizes the importance of brands deploying sophisticated online merchandising and tools. It's extremely important that your dealership thinks about their website as a shopping tool, not just a place to list inventory. And secondly, I highly encourage you to always visit the manufacturer websites for the brands you're representing to see how they're promoting vehicles, how they're positioning and merchandising them online, so you can create a cohesive and integrated model that brings the consumer from the manufacturer's website to your dealership site and guides them through the purchase path every step of the way. So within your business development center or internet marketing team, encourage them to go to the manufacturer websites of the brands you represent and get familiar with their websites just as much as they do with your own website as well too, because we do see consumers spending more and more time within this new era. As we continue shifting forward, we're seeing digital's exponential growth path. So digital advertising spend in Canada from 2015 to 2021 continues to grow, and it's compounding quickly. So as we start to see billions of dollars move online, we will see over 50% of total advertising spend moving to digital in the coming years. As a note to that, you're going to see in 2018 that Google is now commanding close to 1 out of every $2 of digital advertising spend going into the Google ecosystem. While Google does have other channels, such as display, search is their primary medium that generates their revenue. So you can imagine the amount of money that's flowing online through search specifically. But what we did want to highlight is that there is a lot more, and that is why we created the Convergence series, so that search is a part of it, but we do need to start thinking about social and display, and those will be the subsequent webinars that we go through. But it is important to consider within your own media mix that you think about how much Google is taking up of the total market share, because they continue to grow faster and faster. And then you're going to start to see in the subsequent webinars how Facebook and others are starting to eat into that market share as well too. What's encouraging is we've made the leap to meet our customers in the digital realm. So as dealers, you are continuing to shift your dollars online. You're continuing to spread them out through different modes, such as search engine advertising, display advertising, etc. And that is really important because you're meeting customers at the point of where they're shopping. So this is a huge leap that we've made as an industry, especially over the past 10 years, of moving from TV, print, and radio online and even further into mobile as we follow the path of our consumer through this process as well too. And as we look back 20 years later, search is still this simple. We search, we find, and we buy. Google really started to introduce themselves about 18 years ago. Search engines really started to pick up steam in the late 90s. So 2 decades later, it's as simple as a search box. We enter a query, we perform a search, and more often than not, that leads to a conversion that could either be, again, a download, a purchase, or some other form of conversion that will continue to drive the internet as we move forward. All right, as we start to shift into part 2, the fundamentals of paid search, we're going to go through some of the basics that start to build the blocks of how we deploy a successful search engine strategy. So first up, let's go through what is search advertising. In internet marketing, search advertising is a method of placing online advertisements on web pages that show results from search engine queries. Simply stated, it's a search box that spits out on the other side a search engine results page with lots of information relevant to the query that you typed in. So what does this mean for your dealership? Your consumers are searching for local dealerships, vehicles, makes, models, safety ratings, and much more through search engines. So it's imperative that you're placing ads that are shown to these consumers while they search for them to ensure your brand and vehicles are visible to them. We'll go through the construction of a search page, but there's a balance between paying to place those ads and then, of course, organically driving that through effective search engine optimization strategies. This is an extremely busy page. As we start to deconstruct a search engine results page, you'll see there's a lot happening in there. What's important to note that page 1 is very important. Research continues to show through heat maps and various different user experience tactics that 75% of users typically don't go beyond page 1 of their search. So what's important is that you get maximum exposure within this page 1. And as we start to break down a page, you'll see at the top of the page is the first search ads that are listed within there. Typically, there is 1 to 3 listings that are paid placements, and this is where your dealership and your marketing team are paying for keywords to show your brand and your inventory or services within the top of the page. As we start to shift down the page, you see what's called organic listings. And organic listings are where you have highly relevant content from within your website that is indexed by the search engines and naturally placed into there without a charge. This is what we call the democratization of the internet, where you do not need to pay anything necessarily to have those listings show up there, but you can pay others to have better SEO performance and get those listings up there through better content, better page construction, and just overall better landing pages as a whole. As we start to shift to the right, this has been a highly experiential part of the search engine results page. In the lower right-hand corner, you'll see the box in its indicated paid search ads. So these continue, typically the top 1 to 3 listings on the top, start to cascade into the right-hand side, and that's where we see an additional set of paid ad listings, and those listings are usually slots 4, 5, 6, and onwards down. Above that, we start to see Google and Bing experimenting with just putting more organic content up there. In this case, this information is from Wikipedia, and you'll continue to see them experiment on how to get more relevancy for the user right up inside that page. Now, the way you are able to pay for those ads is that you're able to buy ads through the Google, Bing, Yahoo, and other search engine systems. And through a variety of mechanisms, your ads are placed into there, and we will go through what it takes to get into those listings and at the top of the page. But this is the deconstruction of a search listings page and how it was constructed to be insightful for the user, but purposeful for a business and a dealership like yourself. As we start to look at market share within Canada, it is clear that Google is the leader, but Bing continues to grow, and each month this starts to shift. We've seen stats with Bing as high as 8 to 9%. Yahoo as well too continues to shift back and forth. And then there's other search engines that command a little bit of market share. But really you're starting to see that Google globally always takes above 60 to 70% of total market share. In Canada, they're even more dominant. But there are 3 primary search engines that matter for your dealership. It's important that you're advertising on at least Google and Bing, and if not Yahoo. And consider search beyond these, as search occurs in areas such as marketplaces. So if you think about auto marketplaces, users are also searching within there as well too. So it's not just the search engines you need to consider, but also anywhere a user would search and where you can place your ads into. But as you think about your overall search marketing strategy, it is very simple in search to focus on 1 to 2 different publishers, Google and Bing, and at times Yahoo, to be able to get your ads in front of your consumers at the right time. If we highlight Bing a little bit, the interesting part about Bing is that they have a bit of a diverse audience in the sense that they reach a highly desirable one, especially in the provinces of Ontario, Quebec, and British Columbia. This is some statistics that they've been able to pull out, and what they find is 81% of Bing searchers fall within a mid to high income range, and 50% of Bing users fall within the 35 to 55-year-old age group. This, of course, is a highly desirable audience to be able to target your dealership, especially if you have any luxury vehicles on your lot. Although Bing doesn't have a very high market share, they do have a very desirable audience, and that is mostly driven by the fact that they are used a lot within workplaces, where Bing is a part of the Microsoft experience that most people use within their office. So while we advocate Google as the primary search engine because of their market share, we do not want to discount other publishers such as Bing and Yahoo within your overall search strategy. As we get a little bit more into the details here, search engines are highly measurable. From the moment they really burst into the scene in the late 90s and then continued to progress through Google's maturity in the market, what we saw was that search brought a whole new method of measurement to digital and advertising as a whole. So there is a whole set of KPIs, key performance indicators, hundreds in fact, that you can measure. The challenging part is to say, well, which ones matter most to me? Within your dealership, we always encourage looking at the overall ecosystem of your digital ad spend, but within search advertising specifically, called out 4 different areas of measurement that are really important. The first being quality score. Quality score is an important factor in search engines today because you can't just pay the highest price to be on top. You need to have highly relevant content, which means that your ads that you're bidding on, the keywords you're bidding on, and the ad copy that you serve up need to be highly relevant to each other and also tie back to the landing page of where you're sending your users to. And what Google and others are trying to do is prevent people from luring you in through a keyword search, a user, and then sending you to someplace entirely different. So if I placed an ad for a BMW, but I sent a user to a Toyota page, that's not a highly qualified experience. So the quality score is a measurement internally that gives Google and Bing and others the ability to create relevant experiences for their users, which makes them happy and keep coming back. What it means for your dealership, that is, if you serve the ad to the right landing page, you're going to get a highly qualified user that's looking to convert. Next, we look at impression share. And what this shows is the total amount of impressions that are available through Google's ecosystem and their ad auctions on a daily basis, and then uses internal data such as quality for you and other participants in the same ad auctions. And they create what's called an IS, or impression share metric. And that is the percentage of impressions that your ads receive compared to the total number of impressions that your ads could get. And all that's showing is that if 1,000 people searched for a BMW car today, and you showed up on 50% of them, you would have 50% impression share. And what it gives you an indicator of is how much demand is there in the market and how much am I fulfilling against that demand. Typically, we advise clients in dealerships specifically to at least be at 90% impression share for any given keyword that is relevant to their business. 70 to 80% is a good metric as well too. Once you start to get to below that, you might be spreading your digital ad dollars a little too far out within the search engines, and you really want to concentrate on the ones that are converting best and capture as much impression share from those as possible. So again, impression share gives you a good indicator of overall demand in the marketplace and how you're capturing that. Next, we have click-through rate, and this is one of the most important factors in determining your quality score. It tells you whether or not your ads are relevant to searchers. So if 2 out of every 100 click on an ad, you would have 2% click-through rate. Typically, search engines look for 1 to 3% click-through rates to show relevant ads. Anything above 3% is great. Anything below 1% can become a little concerning. And then lastly, we round out with conversion rate. How many people that clicked on an ad, went to a landing page, and then completed an action? That could be making a purchase, signing up for a newsletter, or watching a video. Oftentimes what we find is that a visit to a VDP view, a vehicle detail page within your website, is a high quality conversion because they're looking at the actual vehicle that they intended to look at. They might sign up for an email newsletter, they might fill out a lead form on your website, or even make a call where we can track that number through call tracking technology. So conversion rate really is the pinnacle of metrics, and it gives your dealership an impression or an indication of how many people are converting into a potential customer for your dealership. As we continue forward, the advancement next is to think about integrating your advertising with analytical software. Google, of course, has both together with Google Analytics and Google AdWords. We always advocate that it's important to measure all of your advertising campaigns, but especially the Google AdWords spend that you're using for search engine advertising. What's enticing about this is you can see very advanced analytical data when you combine these two platforms together, such as seeing site performance data You can import analytics goals and transactions into your Google Ads, and you can start to see things like bounce rates, average session duration, and then start to really enhance your ad campaigns through remarketing as well too. So if you aren't today, contact your service provider that's managing your search campaigns, or look at your staff internally to make sure you have Google Analytics and AdWords connected. As we start to shift into part 3, this gets into a little bit more of what's in store for the future and how you can advance your search engine strategies beyond what you're doing today. So as we start to think about what a consumer search delivers, it delivers a lot. This person in the screen, you're going to see scrolling and swiping, but most often than not, they come back and perform a search at some point. Another search can deliver a retail visit, it can deliver an answer to a question the user has, a website interaction, an online purchase, a brand impression, and another search. You'll continue to see that Google has studies showing that people don't just search once and then find what they're looking for. They'll come back and perform multiple searches. In an automotive, that could be for different brands, different makes, models, etc. So it's important to note that it's not one search and done. A search usually leads to another interaction with a user, and ideally that interaction is on your website and then in your dealership. Next up, we have long-tail searches, and long-tail searches are becoming the new normal. And a long-tail search is basically one that uses multiple keywords within one query. So in this example, a user might type in used 2017 Audi A4 gray in Montreal. So no longer are they just searching for Audi A4, but they're getting very specific of what they're looking for. And you'll see how this is even going to progress with new technologies as well too. But searches are becoming more complex, and your dealership needs to capture all of the ones relevant to your product or brand. What happens is when users use keywords this specific in a long-tail search, it typically lowers the cost per click because there's less people bidding on those as well too. So in the auction, it goes down. So if you're not bidding on long-tail searches today, make sure you start to evaluate that as part of your strategy. And it usually takes advanced platforms to be able to do this at scale. Audience data is another aspect of your search engine advertising campaign to go through. Audience data is the process of enhancing advertising campaigns with the use of audience data, enabling you to better target your ad campaigns to predefined people and segments. A first-party audience is what you own and collect through a CRM system or through your website. A second-party audience is data that's defined and collected by a trusted partner. And third-party audiences are data that is defined, collected, and owned by a data provider. What does that mean in real life? So first-party data is typically from your website. So if we have a user that comes to your website, we will then retarget them, even through search ads as well too, and that way we know what vehicle they were looking at on your website. Second-party data could be through a trusted resource like autoTRADER, where you already have a relationship with them and you're using their data to target your ads as well too. And then third-party data would be going out externally and finding a provider like Road and Track if they were able to serve up their audience data to you and buying their data to run against your search ads to make it more relevant. So audience data is a very important aspect of your search engine campaign. It's an advancement that most dealerships may or may not be using, but it will give you a competitive advantage, especially if you take advantage of first and second-party data as part of your campaigns. There is an abundance of online resources available. Google, in fact, has something called the Dealer Guidebook. They usually publish this annually, and this gives you a significant amount of insights into the industry, such as the fact that 95% of vehicle buyers use digital as a source of information. 60% of all automotive searches come from a mobile device, and some of the top mobile searches are related to dealerships. So if you're not using this today, head on over to Google's Think Auto, download their dealer guidebook, and they've got a wealth of resources that can enhance your dealership's digital strategy overall and make Google a big part of your overall ecosystem. As we start to look towards the future, voice-activated mobile search is going to become a reality. As more and more smart devices come online, people are going to be speaking more than typing, and this is why long-tail searches are so important, because instead of having to type those long ones out, they'll just be able to speak these in as well too. So do some research, stay abreast of the trends that are happening out there, start to look at things like voice-activated mobile search, and then also start thinking about the smart devices that are in your home. as a joke for this, Google buy me a car probably won't be too far off. We're already using Amazon to make purchases through various devices like Alexa, Apple through Siri. So it's not too far in the distant future where we'll see search become a big part of our overall ecosystem at home that'll lead to more searches and potentially purchases within these voice-activated devices. So as we start to close out, my advice to you is stay informed, ask questions with your own teams, ask questions from providers in the market, reach out to anyone you can, and always look above the horizon and search for true partners and not gimmicks. There is a lot that goes back and forth on this. Trends happen quickly digitally, and it's important that you stay tried and true to overall best practices in the industry. Experiment when you can, but try to find good partners that give you a good foothold in the market. And in closing, search is imperative to a marketer today as it was 10 years ago, and most likely will be 10 years from now. If it is not today, search engine advertising should be a core tenet of your overall digital advertising strategy, and that will not be shifting anytime soon. Our patterns of search may change, and our modes of search may change, but search engine advertising as a whole is going to continue to stay there, and you need to be strategic in your view of the horizon above. As we start to move forward with the future of the Convergence series, we invite you to the next two. One is social advertising on Tuesday, December 11th from 1:30 to 2, and then also display remarketing on Tuesday, December 18th, also from 1:30 to 2 p.m. EST. We highly invite you to these. They'll go through a similar format and keep you informed of everything happening in digital from search to social to display. And with that, we'll turn it over to the question and answer that Jessica will be providing from any answers or any questions that were submitted as well too.
Thanks everyone for listening. We're just going to go through a couple of questions that came up. Thanks so much, Dave, for walking us through that. There was a question from a couple of people as to whether or not there'll be a recording provided of the webinars. And yes, there will be. At the end of all 3 webinars, we'll be sending out a recording. There was also, Dave, a question for you. What do you consider as a good quality source?
Yeah, that's a great question. Quality score is a metric that Google typically holds internally as much as possible because it's their secret sauce, basically, more than anything else, to be able to hold it relevant. So without getting into any benchmarks here, because they do vary from manufacturer to manufacturer and geographic markets as well. One thing that we will be distributing at the end is some best practices as well too, where we can get into those specific benchmarks. But more often than not, the cost per click that we look for is typically between $1 and $2.50. Again, impression share of 70 to 90%. And then the quality score overall, we want to make sure that we find the balance there, that our conversion rate stays high as well too. Most conversion rates stay within 1 to 3% as well too, sometimes as high as 3 or 4%. And then all those factors together lead to better quality scores overall.
Okay, great. We also had a question from Mac. What's the typical conversion rate that you've seen for email lead submissions for a dealership?
Yeah, it's a great question. So this we can get a little bit more specific on. So I first think that the topic of email lead submissions is really good. More and more we're seeing users not fill out lead forms, because if you think about it on a mobile device, it's a lot of information to complete on a small device. So you might want to start shifting from trying to collect too much information in the lead form to something as simple as an email address. A conversion rate for an email form lead could be as low as 1% and as high as 5%. Typically, if you're testing, you can find different lead-in copy to the email newsletter, such as how often you're sending it. Here's a weekly newsletter. How relevant it will be. We'll only send you offers relevant to you, and that gets more users to convert, and that's where you start to see up to 3 or 4% or higher. But typically, conversion rates are between 1 and 3% online, whether it's for shopping or email signups.
Thanks, Dave. We had another question as well, similar to that one. What is a good cost per internet lead via Google Ads in the car industry, and what about Facebook?
Another great question is, again, consumers are filling out lead forms less these days than they did in the past. In the past, we were able to attract leads from a form anywhere between $6 and $10. We've seen that number move up between $15 and $20, even as high as $30 to $40. The factors there are important. Your geographic market makes a big difference. If you're in a competitive market in an urban area like Toronto, you're going to see those lead forms higher, as well as what type of manufacturers you represent. Seen lead forms for luxury vehicles like Mercedes and BMW go as high as $60 to $80, and for more commoditized vehicles, those can go down between $20 and $30. So there is no just one answer for it all. Again, geographic market and density is a big factor, and then the luxury market versus the commodity market as well. But typically, if you're between $20 and $40 cost per lead, on average, that's decent, but don't shy away from higher quality leads. If you could pay $50 knowing that that's going to convert to a car, you would do that all day. So it's important that you really start to diversify in how you think about your cost per lead.
Thanks, Dave. We have another question from Arena. How much is it required to spend on search ads to see results?
That's a really nice part, is there is no floor per se or no minimum investment. Google can start serving ads for as little as, I think, $5 per month. On average, we see search engine budgets ranging between $500 for a small used car dealer in a rural setting. And I've seen search engine budgets in the tens of thousands of dollars for dealerships that are moving hundreds of cars per month. Typically what we say is that if your digital ad spend is going to be on average 50 to 60% of your total ad budget, sometimes higher, sometimes lower, search engine marketing should be about 50% of that as well too, because that's just where the trends of the industry go in. So if you're spending $10,000 on advertising monthly, $5,000 going into digital, between $2,000 and $3,000 minimum should be going into search engine advertising. And a lot of that can be based on the number of vehicles on your lot, and again, your total overall ad budget. But don't be shy with starting with a smaller amount, even if it's a few $100s to start, because you can always increase it very quickly, and most providers are very responsive where they can adjust budgets within a day or two. But that's definitely on average what we see overall as an industry.
Thanks, Dave. We have one final question from Chris. What steps can used car dealerships take to properly brand their business?
It's a great question, because I think as the market starts to go through another economic cycle, used car dealers are going to see an abundance of inventory, and it gives you an advantage to be able to get out there and promote. The one thing I will say, similar to the long tail searches, is used car dealerships have the ability to really capitalize on those used car searches where people are looking for something very specifically. So even though you might not think of search as a branding mechanism, it certainly can be, because your dealership name will be there. In addition to that, you're going to see in social and display in the next webinar series are great opportunities for your dealership to brand itself. So in the digital realm, these are 3 great avenues for a used car dealership to brand itself. Secondly to that, reputation management is another big piece. It's not something we'll be covering in the Convergence series, but making sure that you're getting good reviews. You typically have close touch points with your consumers, making sure that they're helping promote through word of mouth. And then one thing I always advise is that your dealership is as friendly and promotable as possible, in the sense that you've got a good staff, you've got good signage outdoors, and your lot is clean and the indoors is clean, and the overall experience is really good. You know, with digital advertising, most of it's based online, so the first interaction a dealer or a consumer might have with your dealership is when they actually walk on a lot knowing which car they want to buy. So that becomes really important, because they're shopping less on the lot. So make sure you balance it. You know, get your ads out there online, but also make sure that your dealership is promoting itself within the lot itself to provide a good overall dealer experience.
Thanks so much, Dave. I think that's it for questions. If anyone does have any additional questions, feel free to submit them, and we'll follow up with you afterwards. And don't forget to tune in to the next 2 webinars on December 11th and December 18th. I think that's everything. Dave, do you have any closing remarks?
That'll be all. Jessica, thank you for introducing and carrying us through the question and answer, and to Trader Corporation for providing this. We're always open for any further questions and answers. There is an email address that you can email if you do have any questions. It's b2bmarketing@trader.ca. You can reach out to them with any questions, and I really appreciate everyone taking time out of their day to listen in here, and we're always open to feedback on how to improve these in the future. So thank you, everyone, and look forward to seeing you on the next webinar.